Hi, I'm Guy Lawrence and you are listening to the Guy Lawrence podcast. If you're enjoying this content and you want to find out more and join me and come further down the rabbit hole, make sure you head back to guylawrence.com.au. Awesome guys, enjoy the show. Lynda,
husband.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sounds strange calling you Lynda.
It does. Am I in trouble?
Well, I ask everyone on the show, as you know, if you were at a cocktail party and somebody came up to you, a stranger, and asked you what you did for a living, what would you say?
Good question. I would say, I'd like to say I'd open the bowels of society. So I do I'm a naturopath and I'm a nutritionist.
Would you say that to a complete stranger?
I might have done a little while ago, but maybe I might be a little less crass. So to explain, I work in the area of digestive health, and so I do like to support people that have constipation. So therefore, I do like to open the bowels of society. But I would probably just say I'm a naturopath and nutritionist,
okay.
And I'm the founder of Better Me Tea.
Do you find once people know what you do, ask you a million questions?
Yes. So sometimes you're a little bit selective when you answer that question. But what else can I answer? That's what I am. Sometimes I like to take a break from giving advice. But the problem with that, I don't mind people asking the questions, but I think the biggest thing that us practitioners come across when people just launch into conversation about what's going on for them and how you can help them is that if you work in the world of functional medicine, as an integrative practitioner, I don't feel comfortable just prescribing just on a few words or a brief conversation. I want to know the full history of what's going on and what's driving their symptoms.
What's a common question you might get asked then?
I think it would really vary.
So people normally have an underlying something and they want to use self-diagnose on the spot.
Or they might just say, I've been trying this diet and what do you think about it?
Okay.
And so, I've been trying keto or I've been trying fasting and what do you think about it? And so that even that's not a very easy question to answer. I think, it really would depend on where they're at, if it's suitable for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask you lots of questions
It wasn't such a brief answer to that short question.
But just for a bit of background as well on you, because this is the first time you've officially come on as a guest on my show.
Yes.
I waited 12 months, but...
What do you mean?
We're just going
to get our act together.
Yeah, so now it's happening. Why naturopathy? Why do you love naturopathy so much? Because I see you and the work you put in constantly. And I'm just like, are you going to take a break? But you just, continue to absorb and learn and love and do.
Oh, I love it. I just love everything about it. I think it's one of those things, once it's hard to go back to business as usual. So I think what I mean by that is once I started to really learn about naturopathy and learn about healing someone or supporting their own healing naturally, it's hard to then not be able to, not want to relay or share that information with people that might not be living the best quality of their life, if that makes sense. And I personally just love it. I think it's just supported me throughout the years. And, I always get challenged by patients that might come in with a chronic case or something I don't tend to normally see on a day-to-day basis, and that even excites me because I constantly feel challenged in my role. And so there's always learning, there's always devouring information and research, and there's an excitement that comes with that, just being on your toes all the time.
Totally. But it's nice to be able to then apply all that information you do in your own life, which I see you do constantly. You certainly practice what you preach in a big way. It's handy being your partner and husband, having a naturopath as a wife. I got to be honest.
Oh, you didn't do too badly.
No, before, of course, yeah. I was obviously working in the health industry, but there's always more to learn, and I find it such a process these days, as opposed to an end result. There's a constant tweak and adjustment and try and incorporate it in, as opposed to where I think the mindset can happen sometimes is I'll go in, I'll fix this, then I can go back to my old ways. Or we unconsciously end up doing those things where it really needs to be an adjustment and and a long-term approach, I think, is needed with this stuff.
Totally. And I think also at different points in people's lives, they need different things. Like at the moment, for me, it's preconception care. So my diet's slightly different, and I'm ensuring that I'm getting certain nutrients that I might have been a bit lax with in the past. I'm ensuring that my environment is as low tox as I can get it. And, and I'm ensuring that I'm keeping my stress levels down. And so for others, it may be that they've moved into a building that's a sick building. It might have a lot of mold, and it might have, water damage, and they're feeling triggered or haven't been well since they moved in. And so then we need to readjust the treatment protocol for them, or, what we investigate, or has it sort of triggered on a gene that is triggering their response to that mold toxicity. So I think, at different times in our life, we need different things constantly. And so back in the day, I've tried every diet under the sun. I was doing the macrobiotic diet. I tried, I was a vegetarian for, 18 months, and I did it really poorly. I did keto for a long time, and all that sort of stuff. I just think you constantly need to tweak and adjust with where you're at in the moment, and just constantly ask yourself, do I feel good right now? What can I tweak in my environment, in my mental health, and in my diet? And work with your practitioner too. I think I love it. Nothing more when the patient goes, don't like to call them patients. I went to a congress a little while ago, and they spoke about not calling people patients. We tend to call them clients or patients. And they were saying, could you call them your health partner? And I quite like that, because I see working with people as a partnership. I want them to communicate with me on how they're feeling with the treatment. Does it sit with them? What do they think is going on with their health? Why do they think this has happened? And so it is a partnership, because you know your body better than I do.
Exactly.
I can navigate my way
you mentioned
through.
something I wanted to touch upon there, which about listening to your body. And do you think, like, you've seen obviously a lot of people over the years, and they all come at you at different places and periods in life. Are we not trusting our own kind of intuitive self to honour how we feel and sort of nurture that? And do we go against those signals quite often?
Yes, and I've been guilty of doing that. I think more and more
I think everyone has.
over the last couple of years, I've learned to listen to my little, as my good friend Jules says, the spidey sense, the thing that sort of niggles at you, that doubt that you have. They're like, actually, that doesn't sit well with me. I'm going to question that one. But yeah, people do. I guess, what's the word for it? Where they just give up their power to the so-called expert. And yes, that person may have spent years. For me, I've been in this industry for 20 years now, like close to 20 years. And so I've been immersed in the health industry. And so yes, I've got a wealth of knowledge, but again, it's your body. And so if something doesn't feel right and you just don't feel like it's sitting with you well, like listen to that, or at the very least, question it, and question that have the questions to ask your practitioner if you're working with someone.
Beautiful.
But yeah, we don't. I feel like we kind of give up our power to experts often, and I probably do that in other areas of my life. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I wanted to touch on today, which kind of leads in from that to a degree, is then because obviously what I do within Let It In is help people kind of break through their own belief systems using meditation and using, I guess, the language and neuroscience behind that, so people have a deeper understanding of why we're doing the things we do and how we can create that change and start to bridge that gap of the way we want to live. And we might not be there, and we might be doing things constantly. But at the same time, because I remember somebody mentioned a comment once, I can't remember where it was, saying about Let It In not being the silver bullet. And it's like, well, I know that. Nothing is. And it's a very holistic approach to everything. But the one thing that has fascinated me and has resonated over the years, and I've looked at more, is how actually some of, you could say, the work that you do with the naturopathy and the gut health and digestive system and everything actually affects the way we feel and our mood and how we can actually have an impact on that. But when we're feeling that way, we can kind of feel a little bit helpless and lost because we're in this negative loop. And of course, as we know, the feelings are going to create thoughts a certain way, and it's going to make us think, and we're going to get into these patterns. But there's so much that what you do can influence that. So I thought it'd be great to just touch a little bit on that and how does it all work? Like, and how much are we talking about that the gut and your work actually affects the way we feel?
The gut certainly influences the mood. And, I can share with you some ways. How deep do you want to go? I can go on forever. But I guess the ways in which the gut really influences the mood, there's a number of ways. Some of them I'll share with you today. So we've all heard of the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is like that 10th cranial nerve that starts from the brainstem and sort of innervates all of our organs and goes into the digestive system. And that's one of the ways in which the gut communicates with the brain. But there's also other ways, like our bacteria. Gut bacteria produces its own metabolites and even neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin and dopamine. And B vitamins, it produces B vitamins too that support our mood. But there's also something called LPS, lipopolysaccharides, that gram-negative bacteria can produce. And so when a bacterial cell dies, LPS goes into the lumen, and LPS can create, which is lipopolysaccharides, did I say that? Yes.
You did.
It can create systemic inflammation, and what they've found with people that, say, for example, have depression, they have like a low-grade underlying systemic inflammation. But LPS can also do a few other things in the body. And I can see I'm losing you a little bit, so I'm just going to keep this one brief. Can I just mention with the LPS is that one of the things that it does is that it can shunt tryptophan. Tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin. And so it shunts tryptophan through this pathway called the kynurenine pathway instead of its regular pathway, and that makes the serotonin less available to us, so there's less creation of that serotonin. So it affects the brain in so many ways. When our gut when there's a dysbiotic state, when we've got more of the gram-negative bacteria like proteobacteria or Bacteroides instead of positive bacteria.
Yeah, no, so I'm trying to break that down because then from technical aspects, so if it's influencing our serotonin, now I'm assuming most of the serotonin is actually produced in the gut, not the brain.
Yeah,
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, I know it's both. But so then we start to influence that, which of course affects our mood. Now, what I'm intrigued in, when we say our mood, what we're talking about, you mentioned depression. So it can feed into depression? Could it feed into
anxiety? It can, absolutely. Depression, anxiety, our general well-being and happiness is affected. And so, we might be feeling a low mood. We might be feeling anxiety is a big one.
Flat.
Yeah,
or it could be affecting sleep.
Absolutely. And vice versa, when we're feeling quite stressed, we can be impacting our gut health. Mm-hmm. So it does go both ways. And absolutely not just depression.
So then obviously it makes sense. So if we are constantly caught up in an anxious loop, if we're finding ourselves getting anxious over the smallest things, which could be just general daily lifestyle choices, right? And then if it's affecting our sleep and depression and low mood, which I've certainly experienced all those things in the past as well, then do you think people are actually fully exploring what they can do with their gut, or is it still a case of I'm just going to read a book and just do my best and not figure out the fundamental issues underneath?
Explain the question again. So are you saying, from what I'm hearing, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right, is that the way I see it, if someone's really anxious and they're not sleeping well and, they're feeling really flat, they're often making poor choices even when it comes to diets. Mm-hmm. They might be reaching for, their diet might be very low in fibre, very low in prebiotic-rich foods, very low in polyphenols, and very high in fats. And whilst fats are great, we absolutely need fat. If we're having too much of fats, we're then creating more of that gram-negative bacteria, and then and affecting gut lining integrity, and all these things affect brain function. And the prebiotic-rich foods, the resistant starch, the polyphenols, help to feed the bacteria so that it produces things like the B vitamins, the neurotransmitters, those metabolites that support our brain function, even butyrate, which you may have heard about. And butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid, and that also supports brain function by reducing that LPS absorption, but also improving the gut lining and integrity, so helping to reduce leaky gut. So
I guess the question is then, are people out there consciously thinking, oh, I should look at my gut?
Oh, I think to be honest, it's part of the puzzle. I think you cannot avoid looking at the gut, especially when you've got your mental health has been impacted in the way of anxiety and depression and low mood. I think you that would be one of the first things that you would want to look at, but you'd also want to look at other things as well in your environment. You know, how are you sleeping? Is your environment as low tox as it can be? You know, that sort of thing. And are you nurturing your spirit? You know, are you doing the things that you love? Are you, do you feel like you're connecting with others? I think all of those things are important. But if someone is experiencing depression or low mood or anxiety, especially if they're feeling anxiety, I get excited because I'm like, excellent, there's so much we can do dietary-wise when it comes to improving their gut health. And so it will be one of the first things that I look at improving. But it's not just the only thing. So I'm not so black and white when it comes to...
No, absolutely,
and I guess that's being a naturopath as well. You know, you don't kind of look at just diet and lifestyle. It's the entire picture, well, especially us functional medicine practitioners.
It just does fascinate me because, from somebody going through my own gut health journey over the years as well, and been working with you on looking at rectifying different things and across having that influence, there can almost be like waiting for a cascade of events that probably were symptomatic, where if there's one conversation with you, you could have gone, I would probably explore these sort of things. But for the person on the outside not knowing it, they just continue to compound. And we might see different people from different practitioners or different professionals, but then it comes back, for me, what I found, it was actually looking at the gut. But there's a whole chain of events that kind of went on before that, before I went, oh, maybe I should, once I started exploring this work more. And I think that really needs to be addressed to a degree because it's had such a big impact on myself. And I just do wonder how many people out there that are suffering a lot of these symptoms are not looking at this, and they're still going down other different conventional routes. Not saying that, like you said, it's the magic pill, but it's certainly a major contributor.
Well, you'd hope that people, before they jump on, say, antidepressants or anything like that, they certainly do have their place, but before they sort of jump down that route, you'd hope that they would have explored other avenues and really looked at, you know, what's happening in their life and how they taking on information in the way of nutrients from food, from movement, from connectivity with others and that sort of stuff. So you'd hope that they would have explored that. But luckily there's been so much more acknowledgement of that gut-brain microbiota access. And so I think more people are hopefully looking at that as being a big player in their mental health.
More awareness to it now.
Totally.
Yeah. So what about... just keep that there, it's fine. So what about... We talked about mood as symptoms. What about physical symptoms? Are there any telltale signs again?
Like a gut,
the
gut ecosystem imbalance?
Yeah, imbalance, yeah.
Yeah, God, there's many.
Loads.
So there could be a skin irritation like hives, psoriasis, eczema, acne. There could be things like, hormonal issues like PCOS. There could also be, again, as we spoke about, there could be low mood, anxiety, depression. There could be restless legs of a night time, especially when it comes to things like SIBO. Mm-hmm. There could be bloating.
Aching joints.
There could be absolutely aching joints.
Yeah.
There could be just a general feeling of just unwellness, lack of vitality could be a big one. There could be many. There could be excessive gas. Those typical digestive system ones could be, some symptoms. But there are plenty because the gut is connected to everything. There are so many axes going on in the body that it's not just the gut-brain microbiota. So, we are affecting different organs, different parts of our body will sort of... I get excited about symptoms because I feel like, if we didn't get the symptoms and the signs like acne or psoriasis or hives, we would just continue on maybe taking on information or nourishing the bodies in ways that don't actually suit us in that moment. So by you getting hives frequently, or by you getting psoriasis and eczema, it kind of causes you to look at, okay, well, what's happening in my diet, or, am I moving the body enough, or is there lots of stress in my life? And so it's just like you talk about that little feather, that little sort of nudge saying, hang on a second, you're not listening to me. You're not looking after me. You're not treating me like a temple. And then you get slammed with something that makes you not want to go out. You feel socially awkward. You feel horrible about yourself. You just don't have the energy. Like you just get stopped in your tracks because you haven't been listening.
Yeah, like Tony Robbins says, that everything is an action signal. So if you have symptoms like you say, then it's like, well, because it can feed into stress straight away, right? It just can even feed into more anxiety or stress. And it's proven that when we're in a stress response, we don't make rational decisions.
Oh, absolutely not.
So we have a very distorted view of what's actually going on in that current situation.
Or we don't make decisions.
Well, that's the biggest choice of all, probably.
Yeah, I know when I'm stressed or I'm overwhelmed, which thankfully doesn't happen as much as what it would have ages ago. But you just feel like your life is on hold or life is moving on without you, and you can't make the simplest of decisions for yourself. And that's a horrible place to be for a lot of us.
Yeah, totally. So I'm fascinated then, because if people are listening to this, and I felt it as well, like, oh my God, where do I start? Where do I go? What do I do? And then you can, read Google for 7 hours and you can self-diagnose all you want. And find these things, and like. But
if that triggers you to go and get help, that's not so
bad.
Well,
exactly, right? So there's a couple of questions that ring in. Is like, well, where do we start when we look for someone? If I go to the internet, is there a way of qualifying people? Because quite often it's like, if I hurt my back or something, do I go and see a physio? Do I see a chiro? Do I see an osteopath? Yeah. Like all these questions are going in, and it's fortunately over time and experience of working people, you kind of know where you need to go for what.
Yeah.
But that can be stressful alone on where to start. And then when you find someone, like, what's the gold standard of testing, and how do we diagnose the right test so we don't end up spending a fortune in so many tests? Like, all these questions would go through my mind without a doubt. Yeah. So there's probably 2 questions in there, but what would you say to all of that?
I guess, look, from my personal experience, probably the best way for you to find a health practitioner is there's a few things here. So it's a referral. So if you have had a friend in your life or someone that's like, you must go and see this person that you really helped me with, blah, 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 then that's a good way. Then there's also platforms like that have, which I'll give it to you to pop in the show notes, that have a list of where practitioners are located and where they can be found. The natural therapy pages is one of them. But I do like referrals. Also, if you connect with someone, say, for example, I've got a podcast channel called Love and Guts, and I feel as though people have connected with me there because they're able to see, I guess, my interests. They're able to hear some of my knowledge, even though I'm interviewing someone else, and some people have resonated with me on that level. So I guess, not everyone has a podcast, and there are amazing practitioners that don't. But, referral would be my biggest gold nugget, I would say. But I would also say that if you go and see a health practitioner and say in the first couple of visits you just don't feel like you're connecting, and then you don't have to stay. You don't have to stay and go the course. Like you can move on from that.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So how do you then generally work with someone? So if I was going to come to you, say, Lynda, you're great. I love what you say. I'm going to see you. I got no idea what's going to go on. What can they expect when they rock up? Because obviously you do them online.
Yes.
So talk me through it.
Yeah, and I'm sure many practitioners do it differently. But the way I like to work is that I send people out a online questionnaire, a comprehensive questionnaire to complete before they see me. So it starts the ball rolling. They also send me through any recent and previous blood work or any test that they might have already done.
Okay.
And then when I see them, it's a 1-hour consultation. It's online, so it's Skype, it's Zoom, or it's FaceTime, or even phone if they're not able to use any of those things. and we go through a 1-hour comprehensive case taking, and in that I look at everything as much as I can, their timeline as well. So I think it's really important to find out things in their, in childhood as well as what's currently happening now, because you can see how they were born into this earth and what they've experienced along the way. Were they a Caesar birth? Were they breastfed or bottle fed? Were they a sickly child that used to take quite a lot of antibiotics, or did they take lots of antacids for a long period of time? Was there a fall where they landed off a horse, or a car accident, or something that might have caused a bit of head trauma, which can also affect gut function? So I think that, I spend that 1 hour just generally taking the case.
That's an amazing exercise in its own, the timeline. When you did that with me as well, I'm just like, I started to look at all these different periods in your life that you don't even think about that could be related to something like this.
And you'll often hear that. People are like, well, actually, yes, I haven't felt well since that food poisoning in Bali 2 years ago. Again, that could kind of be contributing to what the SIBO, for example, and affecting gut function in that manner. So I do that. And after I do the case take, I might, depending on where they're at and depending on what I think is the most appropriate course of action, I might get them to do a stool test, and I tend to use...
Do they send that straight to you?
No, they said I don't do the actual playing with the poo, much to my dismay, and much to, I'm sure you're really grateful for that. But
I'm very grateful for that.
So thankfully, even working online, it's still quite smooth. The company will send the kit out to them. They can do the stool testing in the comfort of their own home. They send that back, express post, and then within a few weeks I get those results and we go from there. But generally after the first consult, I will give people changes to do, whether it's dietary, lifestyle, looking at sleep hygiene and whatever they actually need. And it may not mean that we do a stool test. There might be other testing like oats or the Dutch test or anything that might be more appropriate for them. But obviously I'm seeing a lot of people with digestive.
And do you find people that come to you are in different places mentally where they might go, bring it on, I'm going to just rip up my lifestyle and I'm just going to go for it, or like breadcrumbs, Oh,
honestly, we're all different. We're like licorice all sorts, us human beings, and I love it. There are people that are like, give me everything, I'm ready, I'm so ready to make the changes, and they're hungry. And then there's people that just want maybe one thing or two things to change before the next visit. So, it's something that I've learned to just ask now, because sometimes I'll go, here you go, there's all of these things I want to do. Like I see, this is my plan for you, but we need to remember as practitioners, what is their plan for themselves? What do they really want to change right now? And is this going to make them feel like a failure because they haven't been able to implement all of the changes that you've given them in that first prescription? So, yes, I've learned along the way to just check in and say, are you okay with me giving you a few suggestions, or shall we go slow?
Yeah.
And all of it's good. Like, nothing's a failure. If you do one thing, and that one thing could be getting 30 minutes of movement or sunshine first thing in the morning, 5 days a week, fantastic. That's going to change your life in ways that you have never imagined.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think as well with testing, and one thing that's really highlighted to me over the years, where maybe 10 years ago I might have been more not subconsciously reluctant to go and get testing or something. I don't know whether there was a part of me I didn't want to find out, I didn't want to know, or it's going to cost too much, and like all these things would run through my head, and then I would go to the internet, self-diagnose, and just have a crack. But I've realized
yes, how many of us have done that?
But I realize it can only
$2,000 later.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and this is the thing I guess I want to raise. Like, is at least with testing, it's you've got something then to work toward,
yes,
and actually can see change. And I think the fact that actually seeing that feedback is really important in itself in terms of the work that I do, so that it's kind of motivating as well.
Yeah, I agree. And for us practitioners, we're not guessing. because then you could go down so many different routes, because as part of the consultation at the end of it, I tend to spend quite a bit of time on the person's case. I'll look at their timeline. I'll go, okay, these are the things that we may need to look at. We may need to look at their environment. They may have mold toxicity. Is there a potential for Lyme's here, Lyme's disease? What's going on, dietary, lifestyle? Should we test for SIBO? Shall we test their large bowel? And so I'll have to start somewhere, because that's going to cost a fortune, all of that testing, right? And so if I just didn't do any of the testing and I went, well, maybe you've got SIBO, let's just do the protocol anyways. That's a lot of money for not knowing for sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then we get to the end of it, and what if they still feel horrible? And then it's like, well, maybe we should do that test anyways, because I still feel bad. And then you've spent all of this money on supplementation, and it's just because we were guessing. So yeah. I'm a big fan of testing. I would much prefer someone to...
Can you over-test?
Yeah, totally. So I'd much prefer someone, if they were really... if money was a bit of a pinch for them, I would say, right, go and do the stool test, for example, the shotgun metagenomics test, which I tend to use now, or the 16S RNA, which some people use too. And that I'm just saying, because it forever evolves. Back in the day, us prackies were using culture-based techniques for stool testing, and that's changed, where we either use the 16S RNA or we use the shotgun metagenomics. It's more sensitive, we see more. So really important for you guys to know as health partners. But so I would much rather say to someone, if they're in a pinch for money, do this stool test, for example, and maybe I don't see you for 4 to 5 weeks until we get those results back. And then we can change some things, dietary and lifestyle, while we wait, but at least you're investing that money in the test, and we know for sure, and then we can have some sort of direction after that. But of course, there's going to be suggestions that I give people. It's just not in me to go, right, let's just wait for the test. There's always something you can do within their environment, within their food, within their movement, within their stress management to support them while we wait.
What are the this is just from my own curiosity more than anything, because what are the kind of common things that you see in people after treating them over the years? Is it like you mentioned SIBO? Is it leaky gut? Is it yeast overgrowth? Or is it like generally all of the above? I don't know.
And you're speaking to someone that does a lot with digestive health, so I would be seeing a lot of so
it's just almost confirming your own reality,
and I do a lot with SIBO, so I'll be attracting those people that maybe haven't gotten the results or suspect that they might have SIBO. So it's a bit I guess hard to answer that question, because I do see I see a lot of constipation, I see a lot of bloating, there's lots of skin issues as well, psoriasis and hives and eczema, joint pain, all that sort of stuff, low libido as well. Yeah. So, that there's menstrual irregularities is huge as well. So, I do like it's another love of mine, women's health. And so, I see everything.
So all right. And I think what rituals do you, because I watch you go during the day, and you're on autopilot. You do things very so subconsciously now, because it's in you. But I have no doubt, if other people were watching you, the way you were in the kitchen and some of the routines that you have, they're like, oh, that's a good, so how could you distill that into, is there any key things that you do that would be helpful to others that you look for in the way you prep your food or the way you operate? Yeah. What comes to mind?
My mornings are really important, so I really spend that time for myself. So I get up and I meditate, and it may just be 20 minutes, and then I'll go off and do yoga. So I'll do a yoga class, and that is my space. That is an hour of just deliciousness for me, because I work from home and it can be really isolating. So it's I'm amongst other people, so there's that connection of energy. I often feel like I get downloads, I'll come up with some answers to some things I've been ruminating on. And I get to move my body and nourish my organs. And so that's my space. I then come home and I enjoy breakfast. For me, my diet's changed a little bit, as I mentioned, the preconception stuff. But also, this is interesting, maybe interesting and relevant for some people out there.
So what wouldn't you eat for breakfast?
What wouldn't I eat? I wouldn't eat a croissant with bought from a supermarket or a muffin, like an unhealthy muffin.
Like if you look at the standard Australian breakfast,
yeah,
probably not.
No, so I wouldn't eat processed stuff. Let's put it like that. I like to eat like unprocessed whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
But I've tweaked it to what I need right now.
100%.
And like you've watched me have to reduce, I'm a bit of a fat lover. I love my fats in the sense of all of the fats and oils, the butters, the ghees, the coconut oils, the olive oil, macadamia oil, all that sort of stuff. But when I got my stool test back, I had high levels because I'd been on almost a keto diet for a number of years. In the initial stages, it was like, I feel great. This is awesome. And then I didn't start to feel my vital self, and I got some stool testing done. And in that I was producing bacteria that like to feed off bile. And so I'll break this down. If you're eating a very high fat diet, especially saturated fats like butters and ghees and coconut oil, you're producing more bile to break down these fats. And so you're producing more of these bacteria that tend to cause gas and bloating and all, skin conditions and various other things. And so I was like, oh, okay, keto was good for a while. Maybe I need to reduce those fats because they went a bit excessive. And so now you'll find that sort of I've adjusted it to have more of the monounsaturated fats like your olives and macadamia and that sort of stuff. I'm totally not answering the question. So yes, I come home and have breakfast. Total tangent. Come home and have breakfast, and then I'll usually I love tea. So and you see me, I'm boiling the kettle like totally. So often. So I'll brew up some big pot of tea, and I'll go into the clinic, which is our office. It's turned into my office now, and I'll just get into work, and whether it'll be consulting with health partners or podcasting or something like that. And so for me, movement, good nutrition, and the nourishing tea, especially during winter, I feel like it's just a bit of a warm hug for me. It's my friend in my office.
So is the slow cooker.
Oh yeah, slow cooker, absolutely. That's a saviour.
If you're not cooking with a slow cooker, guys, I'm serious.
But having said that, I do like the separation between work and evening. So I do like cooking, kind of finishing my day and putting everything away. I'm going to pop a podcast in or just nothing, have no sound, and then chop and cook and make a beautiful meal for us. You know what I mean? That for me is a bit of a separation and a meditation almost.
For sure. I'm just looking. I want to make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, that's fine. All right, I'm going to ask some of the questions that I ask everyone on the show, and as you've been a guest. So the first one is, what's been a low point in your life, but has later turned out to be a blessing?
Well, I had an eating disorder. I had anorexia for my late teens, and that worked out to be a blessing because I really understood. I remember a moment in my bedroom, because I'd locked myself away from the world, especially my mother, because she, poor thing, would just always try to get me out of that state, and I just couldn't deal with her hurt. And so I was isolated in my room, and I had this moment of, even when I thought I'd get to a certain weight, I would be happy. I'm not happy. I'm miserable. And so I started to then understand how food was information for my brain because I was miserable. And so I started to say yes to friends asking me out to dinner. I started to not starve myself, and I could feel the changes in my body and how that information from food was just supporting my mind. And so it was just a big penny drop with how much food is information. And it just, so that was a low point, which turned out to be the best thing ever.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, there's a lot of people out there that need to come to that conclusion. Absolutely. You know? Yeah. If you could have dinner with anyone from any time frame, anywhere in the world, outside of me, of course, who would it be and why?
Oh, God, that's such a great question. And I really should have known this because you're my husband and you ask these questions all the time.
And you listen to my podcast, which I'm always on.
Oh, my God. You know what? It would probably be someone like Oprah. She's just phenomenal. And I just love the way that she's present with people and her interviewing style and just everything, and how she's just so raw in front of everyone. And she still has her demons and all that sort of stuff, but she's phenomenal. I would love
Beautiful.
to know her.
Yeah, I haven't asked this question on the podcast for a while because we covered your routine kind of earlier. Yeah. So what's one thing most people wouldn't know about you?
I like to eat everything with a spoon. It's the strangest thing. Like you know what I think it is? I don't want to miss a morsel. So like sauces, or just not even sauces, everything that even doesn't require a spoon, I eat everything with a spoon. And I once spent a year perfecting the crispy pork belly skin.
Beautiful.
I tried every recipe under the sun.
Oh, I know what I want to ask you as well. And then I can attest to the spoon. Oh my God. She's even tried influencing me with a spoon.
And he doesn't do it purposely, even when it's required. Just
eat soup with a fork. I want to touch, before we wrap it up as well, I want to touch on your podcast. Great name, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because you came up with it. Thank you for that.
I did, yeah. But you've been podcasting now...
since March last year.
Yeah.
2018,
so 15 months. And it's amazing to watch your podcasting journey evolve. And I'm so proud of you because you sound so much more professional than me when you speak in the thing as well. What has podcasting taught you over that time?
Oh, a lot. But it has taught me to just be myself. Because that's what people connect with most. And don't be afraid to share your story and to listen more. Geez, in the beginning, I feel like I just jumped in on everyone as I spoke, and through my nervousness and not wanting to forget, because I was relating with what they were talking to. So I've learned to, I guess, be more present and listen until people finish. Hopefully I didn't jump in your questions today. And to put myself more. Yeah,
and what you've had a lot of guests. I think you've even had the 100th show. So
106 now, 105, something like that. Yeah.
Amazing. So of all the guests, who stood out for you as wow? I don't know, for whatever reason.
Oh, honestly, the first one that comes to mind is Paul Chek, and I think because he I came into it thinking, I'm a little bit nervous. He's a very big name. And then he was just so disarming. He came on with his smoking his tobacco and herbs. And, his wife was like, he'll be here soon. He's just gone to the toilet. And he was just so giving of his time and his his experience. I shared with him my miscarriage, and he was sharing his experience with that too. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful man. And I just, how people, there's that thing that people will remember how you made them feel. I remember how he made me feel. Afterwards, I was like, oh my God, this man is beautiful. What a good human being. And it just was such a nice little connection. So, and there was also a bobcat that came past his window as we were speaking, and he took the moment to appreciate the bobcat and say it was a special moment, and it was just really it was magical.
Yeah,
it was really magical.
Yeah, it was an awesome interview.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
We both had the pleasure of interviewing Paul, so I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
fantastic. And just to finish with everything we've covered today, anything to leave our listeners to ponder on?
Don't ignore the signs and symptoms, and also just listen to yourself. And if something doesn't feel right, honour that and question it, and recognise that you're not alone as well. Like those little taps, those little signs and symptoms aren't something that you need to consider as being normal. And it's often something that can be rectified, or at least reduced in its severity. So don't live this life feeling like you need to put up with stuff. It doesn't feel right.
Beautiful. So, and if they want to find out more about you, obviously you got the podcast Love and Guts.
Yes.
Available on all good channels.
Yes, so Love and Guts. You can definitely find me there. My website, LyndaGriparic.com. didn't do the whole Lynda Lawrence because it's just too much of a common name, and I want Lynda Griparic. And also, they can't find me through the tea. But if you've ever consumed Better Me tea, I put my hand up, I made that.
Well, explain to people quickly what Better Me tea is if they don't know.
So I created a all organic herbal tea blend called Better Me tea. Mm-hmm. So it's got 4 herbs in there.
I drink it every night.
And we do. It's a bit of a ritual for us, and it supports bowel movement regularity. So it was designed to help people move their bowels, because a lot of the teas that are out there for that purpose don't taste very good, or they contain things like senna, which can be really harsh and harmful on the gut lining and integrity if they take it for a long period of time. Or they could be consuming like laxatives that give them the griping, and again, harmful on the gut. So tastes delicious, it's all organic, and it helps to reduce or extinguish constipation, as well as the common digestive complaints, bloating.
Highly recommend it. I might be biased, but I do drink it every night.
You do drink it every night, and trust me, he doesn't do things he doesn't want to do.
No.
Especially when I've created it.
This is true. And so make sure you get amongst it. You got a weekly newsletter as well. I know you're things up to date with the podcast and all the rest of it, and you've covered so many topics on there. I highly recommend it. And Instagram's the other thing.
Instagram, I do. That's the best place to find me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
I really loved it.
Thanks, baby.
Thank you.